Hey guys, and welcome back to Regretsit, Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, as black people, we find ourselves having to apologise to the people of England for imposing, right, the first black chancellor, right, who hasn't even lasted 2 months before he was sacked. This is the most embarrassing moment, right? Because as I said, this man is the first black chancellor. And when you're the first black person to do something, yeah, you've got to be good at the shit. Right? You've got to be really good because right, everybody else is judged on you now. Right? So it can be a long time until we get another black chancellor. Because let me tell you, right? Unfortunately, this is the way how a lot of Caucasians' brains thinks, especially when they're from the right wing. Right? They're gonna judge every single black person on Kwarteng. I've had a whole life of it. Listen, I can walk into a petrol station, and if I walk in there with another black person, the person behind the counter just assumes we're together, right? Or I walk into the same petrol station and the person says to me, they just look at me, I'll pump free. At which stage I'm like pump 9. Alright. So I instantly glance over and see who is at pump 3. And it's always a black guy. Right? That's what I tell you, right? We will all be judged. I'll give you another one. You might start working somewhere, right? And you start talking to a white guy and they go, oh yeah, I know a black guy. I know one. I know a black guy. I've got a black mate. And the first thing I say to you is, do you know them? Do you know this black person that I know? Right? Seriously. Do all white people know each other? Right? So that's what I tell you, right? We will all be linked. And this motherfucker, yeah, has got politics that I hate. I hate his politics. Right? He wants to send people who look like me and him to Rwanda. Right? So this guy, yeah, has never ever been someone who I could possibly support. Right? And I knew having him as the first black chancellor was a complete mistake. Do you know why? Because I've read Britannia Unchained, and anybody who's read that would have known, right, that this shit's gonna fall apart. Right? Gordon Brown just read it the other day because he hadn't read it before, so he just read it the other day to find out what the score is with Liz Truss. And when he's read it, he can't believe what he was reading. Even the guy who wrote it, who Liz Truss is taking her advice from because she's read so many of his books, and he's just said this woman can't read. Right, because he doesn't know why the hell she's taken that advice, because that wasn't the advice from the book. But now I'm wondering how long, right, flat backside Liz Truss is going to last. Because I tell you something, yeah, the shelf life of a lettuce and the Daily Star, right, have got a live feed with a lettuce on it. Right, to see which one lasts longer. If the lettuce goes rotten before Liz Truss is forced to resign. But I don't know what the Tories will do if they get rid of her now. I have no clue what they'll do. Right, but for Kwasi Kwarteng, right. But then we can say at least Kwasi Kwarteng got to do a mini budget, but it was still a budget because Savage Javid never got to do a budget. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing. So at least Kwasi can say, I got to do a mini budget, right? And Saj, right, or Zippy didn't get to do a budget. But this is really embarrassing. I don't know if he's the shortest ever lived Home Secretary. I know one of them died. I can remember reading about reading that in school somewhere. I know one of them died, I think, back in the 1970s after like a really short time of being in the job. But and then you got Pinhead Zippy, Nadim Zahawi, but he was only put there. He was put there by Boris Johnson, so his post was never going to last. But I don't know how long he actually got. But I do. But you got to remember, yeah, that Kwasi Kwarteng has had 11 days of the Queen's of the memorial for the Queen. Right, so this is the most embarrassing. I mean, just yesterday I heard him being interviewed, and they said to him, "Will you be in your job next month?" Right, and that question, I was like, shouldn't you be saying next year? Like, this is like, these people, right, was always the wrong people, right, to put in charge of this country. And I've got so much people talking about like Rishi Sunak. And you've got to remember about Rishi Sunak, yeah? This is a man, right, who already done told people, I take, right, from the less well off and I give it to rich people. He's already done said that, right? And for me, right, if you are, because so much people are here coming on the radio and saying they had their Tories, and I'm listening to people, I think to myself, you don't sound like a Tory, because you know why? Because you don't sound rich. I know Rich hasn't got a sound, right? Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, is rich, and then you've got people who are out and out Cockneys who are rich, right? Or speaking a thick Northern accent who are rich, or speaking a thick Scottish accent who are rich. So that doesn't. But you can always tell when someone's like more well-to-do and they've got good money, right? Because most of the time they tell you. Right, but when you've got people who you know to yourself, this person sound like they're on Struggle Street, especially by the way how they're speaking on the radio, they sound like they're on Struggle Street, but yet for all they believe they're a Tory. And I say, because I always say to these people, if you're not wealthy, right, then you're not a real Tory. You're just playing at being a Tory, and what you're doing is just fucking up everything for the rest of us. And that's the reason why these type of people can get the keys. I know there are no keys, so don't quote me on that. There are no keys, but they can get to live in number 10 and number 11 Downing Street, right? Even with the level of incompetence, because you can't tell me, right, that after this short space of time, and we're looking at like 30 odd days, even might be even the late 20 odd days, right, of how long Kwasi Kwarteng's actually had in this job. This man hasn't even had a chance to redecorate, right? He hasn't even had a chance to to even call the decorators in, right? Let alone have to start the work. Right? He hasn't even had a chance for any plans to be drawn up, and he's already out of there. And this is such an embarrassment to black people. And you say, black people, how the hell do you feel now? I said, well, we didn't vote for this. We never supported him. It's a shocking day. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me, and a special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all the messages for definite. And we're going to start in America, right? Because Donald Trump has been subpoenaed by the January 6th committee. And it was on Truth Social yesterday, trying to slag them off and that. Right? But obviously now, I don't know how this subpoena is going to work, whether or not he's legally. I think it might be an actual legal one where they're saying to him, well, you need to attend, and if you don't attend, then the same thing what happened to Steve Bannon can happen to you, because Steve Bannon's in court sometime this month, and I'm sure he's got to go and do at least 30 days minimum, right? Because obviously he just said, well, he's not going. So Donald Trump has been put in the same position, but I know. Right, that right now the Republicans, right, are looking and saying to the Democrats, oh please don't indict Donald Trump, please don't indict him, oh we couldn't have that, oh please don't do it. In the same way, the Tories are looking at Labour and saying, oh please don't try and take us back into the EU in any form, into the single market or into the customs union, oh please don't do it, please don't try, please. Right, outwardly they're saying, oh no, we don't want to go back in. right? But inwardly they're saying, please don't take us back in, right? In the same way, right, that the Republicans really need the Democrats, right, to fuck Donald Trump up, because they know to themselves they can't do it because Donald Trump's supporters are too crazy. So they can't do it themselves. So they have to try and rely on the Democrats doing it for them, right? So now, obviously, the Democrats, it's looking like Donald Trump he's got so much different like cases going on. He really needs to hope that next month the Republicans win the House, the House, the lower house, rather than the Senate. Because obviously then they can shut all this down, because that's what they're looking to do. They want to, that's what they say they're looking to do. But right now, I know that the Republicans really want the Democrats to get rid of Donald Trump for them for good, but they can't do it themselves. So they really, really do need the Democrats to do it. Whether or not the Democrats can do it, I don't know. King Charles officially met our Prime Minister, the lady with the flattest backside in the UK, pencil neck tin Lizzie Trust. I think this was their second official meeting. And the words come out of Prince Charles' mouth was, oh dear, oh dear. And Liz Truss must have looked around and went like, is it really that flat? Right? When Prince Charles went, no, it's how you're running the country, love. It's what you're doing to the country, woman. That's what I'm talking about. Prince Charles, he's not really supposed to get into politics, but obviously he's been watching what's going on, and he's just like, he can't believe it. But that must be really so embarrassing, for Liz Truss, because but then again, she was never the right person. She was never the right person for the job, and so much people said this long before she was given the chance to take over. But they still went ahead and done it. We have over 7 million people on the NHS waiting list, waiting to be seen for minor operations and major operations and cancer checks and all these type of things. 7 million people on the waiting list. And you know what that is? That is called austerity. When you come in, right, and you get rid of all your services because you want to cut down on the money the country spends, right, and you want to cut down on the important money the country spends, right, and that is what's happened in this country. And the Tories, from ever since they come in, they've run everything down. And then once the pandemic hit, because we was up to, I think we was over 4 million people on the waiting list, before the pandemic, right? So it was already in real problems, and now we've got 7. And you have to wonder, and they are doing like a lot of appointments in the night. A friend of mine had an appointment the other night at like something like 10:30 in the night in a hospital, right? And I'd never heard of appointments at that sort of time, but yeah, so they are doing loads of appointments like as much as late as they can, and all through the day. But I don't really think that's cutting through it, because they're so short of staff in the NHS, because the NHS is like a bit of a hostile environment to work in, and that's what these guys have turned. They've turned it into that. Right? All of this has been done on purpose. Right, all of this has been done on purpose. But the only problem is they've gone too far with the shit. That's the problem. They've just gone much too far with it, and now you've got people who are getting their cancer diagnosis much too late. Because so that's happening a lot in this country, and it's down to austerity. Right? These people came in, right, and they said we're going to cut all the services, and the people of this country said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. They also said that about Brexit. It's a 13 months wait for a child to have their tonsils out. That just shows you what kind of state this country is in, because that shit's really painful. Right, it's a pain that comes and goes, but it's really, really painful for a child. And normally, when I was a kid, the kids was getting their tonsils out like that. it was a quick in and out operation, and loads of my friends have had their tonsils out. I never, but loads of my friends did. They had went and had that operation. Loads of them, but it was always a very quick operation, and they never had to wait any length of time. It was just like most of them. It was just like go to the GP, and then a couple of days later they'd just go and get their tonsils taken out, and then they'd be outside playing. A couple of hours later. So with what's happened there, it's been very, very serious. Unfortunately, you know that Kwarteng actually had to cut his trip short, right? Because he was in America at the IMF seminar, and because of what he's done, he's had to cut short, right, and get his tail back here, only to come back and get sacked by Liz Truss. Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, it looks like that people might be trying to line these two up for some type of hostile takeover. Right, and from the way I've heard it, is like they're saying, oh well, Penny Mordaunt will be the Chancellor and Rishi Sunak would be the Prime Minister. But I'm thinking, well, shouldn't that be the other way around? And I'm quite sure, right, that in a lot of people's minds, the only way it would work is the other way round. It wouldn't work as Rishi Sunak being the Prime Minister, because what they've been talking about is anointing him. Just a few Tory MPs just to anoint him and Penny Mordaunt as, to take over. But obviously they'd have to start changing the rules with the 1922 committee, because they haven't actually got these powers at the moment. And no one in this country, right, would want to wait another 6 weeks for them to choose another loser Prime Minister. Right? Because the last one to actually the last one to win an election, David Cameron, obviously, he won the election. And then after that, obviously, we've had anointed Prime Ministers. Two of them who have been anointed have gone on to win elections, but those elections was fought under a lot of lies, right? Brexit, a lot of lies. It was fought under, right? And people were stupid enough and racist enough to vote, right? And look at what state we're in now. We truly are in Britannia Unchained, but the only difference is, right, they're the ones, right, who are the lazy, good-for-nothing bastards in the whole situation. Cruella de Braverman, or Ferret Face, as we like to call her, it looks like that she may have destroyed the Indian trade deal between Britain and India, because she's been running off her mouth about Indian people, talking about how they like to overstay and blaming them, right, for a lot of the illegal immigration in this country. And the Indians have taken great offence to this, right? So it looks like, she is another one, right, that she could well be on her way out pretty soon, because all she can literally talk about is immigration, right? And I think that like that sort of stepping off at the moment, right? For now, that's sort of stepping off at the moment, because there's so much people who's actually against the whole Rwanda thing, and so much people turn their nose up about it. Do you know what I mean? There are obviously the hardcore racists. I see Nigel Farage trying to boost it up the other day on Twitter. Right, so there are still them, but I think that a lot of people in this country are saying, well, you know what? Yeah, that is just a fucked up plan, right? So I don't know. I don't really think, right, Cruella de Braverman or Ferret Face, right? I don't know if she's really got long in her job either, and especially if they get a new leader, which is just unbelievable that we're talking about that there could possibly be a new leader for the Tory party already. That's just ridiculous. But that's where we are. Let's talk about some Brexit, shall we? The UK government is still giving people the wrong information over EU passport validity. You just thought that they had all this shit sorted out, innit? And all this shit was supposed to be sorted out before we actually left. But, right, it's like the level of incompetence, right, and you know, the unpreparedness that exists in this country. This is why this shit is going on. The Home Office have been taken to court over pre-settled status rules for EU citizens. Another thing was supposed to be, this basically linked to the other story, was supposed to be something that was sorted out. They were supposed to sort out, right, these people's status within this country. You know, everyone thought that they did. They had. But they have not. Right, and now they've been taken to court over it. This whole thing is just embarrassing. But we have a positive note to finish on. A Brexit bonus. A boom boom Brexit bonus. A Brexit bonus boom. Kemi Badenoch has slashed red tape on Scottish whisky exports to the on Scottish whisky exports. Obviously, when they're dealing within the EU, everything has to be to the EU's standards, right? We can't dictate any standards at all to the EU, right? You know, whether or not it's what comes into this country or what goes out of this country. If it's going into the EU, we can't dictate any terms. And anything that's coming into the EU, into here from the EU, we can't dictate any terms because we don't have any power to dictate any terms for anything that's coming in. If you notice, that's why it's all free flowing coming in, and going that way is all red tape. Anyway, guys, look, I've gone 1 minute over, and that's not too bad. It's Friday, so I wish you all a happy weekend, and I will see you next week. This, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.